Hey yo guys, what's up and welcome back to Two Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're getting our album review of A Wonderful Life from Mushroomhead. Alright, so we didn't do a first impressions for this album because it fell on a date where we weren't really available to do a first impressions, but we've spent the entire week listening to this album non-stop, and I'm gonna just preface this video with one thing and say, usually by this time, on our review videos, I generally know what I'm gonna score an album. This time, right now, at this moment, right now, I still don't know what I'm gonna give this album. With that said, I enjoyed this album a lot more than I thought I was going to. This album surprised me a lot. Not in any way that kind of blew my mind, like, oh my god, this is amazing. I can't believe these guys are making music that I love. Because I already like this band. But for me, their last 2 or 3 albums have been so flops, okay? I would say this is their best work since 13. I think this is their best lineup since then. And as most of you probably know, this band's gone through a plethora of lineup changes, most notably the vocals. They start off with 2 vocalists, they lose one, gain one, lose one, add a female, lose a guy, gain a guy, all kinds of stuff. The trio they have right now is very strong. They each have their own separate dynamic. All 3 of them are great vocalists. They all bring a really unique flavor to the band, and they gel very well together. Songs. The album starts off, the first song, A Requiem for Tomorrow. It starts off with like a choir kind of thing, right? I don't really like that too much, but it's short, that part. And then the song kicks in. This song for me is kind of forgettable. Okay, I know you were liking it a lot. When we listened to it for the first time last week, he was really digging it. I was like, it just sounds kind of blah. Madness Within is the second track. There's one part of this song I like, and it's Steve's first verse that he sings, where you kind of really get the first sense of him kind of doing his, like, I guess, Jano voice, which I've actually read that Jano is actually influenced by Steve. I think it was the other way around.
Really?
Yes. So that's my favorite part of that song, because they go way back apparently. But then you get the next song after that, Seen It All, which is the first single we reacted to, and I didn't really like it that much when we reacted to it. It was kind of a meh song. That song grew on me a lot. It's got the catchiest chorus. Love the chorus of this song, okay? It's just, it gets stuck in your head, singing it all day long, but the friggin' slap bass Dr. F is doing during that chorus is just sick. I love it. He has these really bow kind of like just awesome bass tones in there. But from Seen It All the way to 11th Hour, which is let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a 7-track streak of just awesomeness. The flow of those 7 tracks, one after the other, and the ride it takes me on, I just fucking love it. I could probably go on about each one. I'm gonna hand the floor to TV Fish. I don't want to talk too much, and I'll probably go back and maybe give you guys a few points about some stuff here and there, but after that, the album tapers down a little bit for me. The last track is pointless. I skip it every time. It's Confutatus. It's another kind of instrumental choir kind of thing for like 5 minutes, 4 minutes. Skip that every time. Don't like it. Blah blah blah. But yeah.
Well, I will say, in general, I have a similar opinion on this album to you, is that I, too, was very surprised in a good way about this album. Now, the last few albums had good moments, but overall, I think, lacked a lot of focus. This album has that focus. If you look at the last record, it also had 3 singers, but I feel like they didn't know exactly how they wanted everyone to fill roles. Everyone was kind of just doing the same thing. It just didn't feel like it was organized very well. And I didn't really like the mix either, specifically J-Man. On that album, he had a weird effect on his voice, and it sounded like he was 500 yards away.
Yeah.
On this album, believe it or not, they have the same guy who mixed it as the guy who mixed 13, which was Matt Wallace. And you can hear that. You can hear that in J-Man's voice specifically. I hear that voice, I'm like, this is what J-Man really sounds like.
He has backbone again.
Exactly. Like, really,
Yeah.
And one small thing about his performance that I really loved is that in 11th Hour, he sings a melody, which I don't think I've ever heard him do ever in all of his time with Mushroomhead.
Yeah, to my recollection, I don't recall that either, but he pointed it out and I was like, wow, he actually is singing melodically.
And it's really cool, and he's a really good sounding bass.
Yeah.
It's surprised the shit out of me. So a few highlight tracks for me was A Requiem for Tomorrow, one of them. You weren't a fan of it. When we first heard it, as you said, I liked it. It just grabbed me immediately. I don't know why, I just, the catchiness of it just really kind of hooked me. And that's one of the biggest things I noticed about this album. It has, at times, a classic old school Mushroomhead feel, but it's very catchy and accessible. Almost to a fault. And when I say that, I mean the album at some points lacks some character. It kind of feels like a generic album at some times. Okay. It doesn't feel like it has as much of the Mushroomhead character that you really find in some of the older stuff that this album's kind of emulating. But at the same time, I'm finding more often than not with this album and its catchiness is that it's in a good way. I was singing the majority of these songs, whether I liked it or not, and I was generally liking it. Like, it was just getting in my head and I'm just like, yeah, this part, this melody, this, I was enjoying that. So, it does maybe lack a little bit of character in that sense for the sake of sounding a little more generic, but it's kind of okay because it sat with me fine. I also really like Seen It All for similar reasons of Requiem for Tomorrow, but I feel like that song is a little bit less, I guess, kind of old school sounding, but even then, it's still good. Like, I still enjoyed it. The other song I really loved is The Time Has Come. That song, I feel like has that quote-unquote old school sound the most out of any song on this album. I feel like you listen to that, and that takes you back 20 years to Double X and 13. That song, it has the feel, and one of the biggest things I love about this song is that every section of it is cool. From what I've noticed on a lot of the songs in this album, it starts with one thing and then turns into something else. And more often than not, I'm noticing the beginning's a little lacking and then it gets good. The Time Has Come is good from beginning to end. The whole thing is good. And the first and second half are really different sounding as well. Like you have, a slower kind of eerie thing and then it really kicks up the energy. Yeah. So it has that dynamic within itself.
That's actually a common theme on this album too. Like you take a song like Pulse, it starts off kind of slow. It's like Jackie's doing her thing, and then Steve will kick in and do his part, and then it kind of goes back and forth. It's almost like demons like saying we're coming for you kind of thing. If you read the lyrics, that's kind of the vibe I got. But then there's this one verse which is a more of a positive sounding, uplifting sounding voice, which I got maybe like an angel versus demon vibe. But the song ends very differently than how it starts. And it starts off very dark, it goes through like a dark ride, bit of a roller coaster, and then it ends more on a lighter note, which is pretty cool. I like those dynamics when they do stuff like that.
Yeah, now that being said, I agree with you about the last track, Confutatus, does not need to exist. The last track, Where the End Begins, would have been a perfect ender. Honestly, that would have been a great ending track. It would have felt great to finish off with that. Yeah. So the fact that you have 4 minutes of pointlessness is like, why does this track exist? And overall, I'm not a huge fan of the use of choir of this album because, from what I recall, there are 3 times it's used. 1, at the beginning of Requiem for Tomorrow. 2, I think near the end of Pulse. And 3, as the final track.
Right, the end of Pulse, you're right.
Now, in A Requiem for Tomorrow and in the last track, it's just on its own. It's not complementing anything, it's just there to be there. Yeah. It doesn't, like in Requiem for Tomorrow, it doesn't come back, it doesn't have any relevance to that song, why is it there? But in Pulse, it complements that song. It's a part of that song and it works.
I agree with that.
That's really the only situation where the choir works. Honestly, Requiem for Tomorrow would honestly be so much better if it didn't have those 30 seconds. And I'm not kidding. Yeah. If the song just kicked off where it was, it would get right to the action immediately and feel great. But instead, I gotta wait 30 seconds of something that's not really relevant to the majority of the album. Which, like, damn it, what the hell?
Yeah, that was one of my issues with it too. If you took out that intro, it would have felt a lot more like a song like Kill Tomorrow and 13.
Absolutely.
Which was a sick track to kick off the album.
Love that song.
Right?
I also feel like The Flood could have been a good album closer as well. I feel like the second half of the album had a few songs that you could have kind of put at the end, But at the same time, the album, it kind of works with itself pretty well. I feel like the flow of the album is good.
The flow is very good.
You go from beginning to end and it feels natural. It doesn't really feel like anything's truly out of place.
Exactly, and if you end the album yourself on where the end begins, then it feels like a complete album.
Exactly.
If you let the last track play,
it hurts it a lot.
It hurts it a little bit. But it is one of the tracks, so there are bonus tracks too, which we don't talk about. So if you guys are like, hey, what about the rest of these tracks? We don't count bonus tracks in our review, so Computatus is actually the last official track. So yeah, I don't know. You wanna rate it?
Alright, well this album I think is honestly solid, even though I feel like you really need an open mind to truly appreciate it, because I feel like it might be a little divisive for Mushroomhead fans. Some of them might look at this album and say, what the hell, they sold out, there's no more Jano, blah blah blah. But it doesn't really matter that there's no more Jano, because I think Steve fills that void really, really well.
He does, yes.
That being said, this album does lack a little bit of character, and it does kind of feel like it's just, you know, a little bit on the generic side. But I honestly still think it's really good. Like, it's an album worth listening to. It's a 6.5.
6.5. I think this album impressed me quite a bit. I had my reservations for Steve. I think he met my expectations, or surpassed my expectations, I should say, and started to actually impress me throughout the week, to the point where I wasn't missing Jano. My biggest hang-up at the beginning of the week was this album doesn't feel as poetic as previous albums. That's one thing that really attracted me to Mushroomhead, was the lyrics and just the depth of the lyrics and the multiple interpretations of the lyrics and things like that. I really like that aspect of the older Mushroomhead, and I was kind of missing that this week listening to this album. But I did read some of the lyrics, and I started to try to kind of change my mind on that. Like, there's a lyric in Pulse, for example, and I don't know the exact lyric, but it's something like something about the grass. The grass grows, and your time has come. Now it's time to see the grass grow from below, or something like that. Like, basically now you're underground, 6 feet under, and you're seeing the grass from below. I'm wording it completely wrong, but just when I read the line and heard the line, I was like, wow, I've never even like thought of that before. Like, that's just a weird, unique way to look at death. So there are things there that do impress me. As I said at the beginning, I didn't have a rating for this going in. Don't like the first track, don't like the last track. The rest of the album, I think, is pretty damn strong. And for fans of Mushroomhead, like you said, it might be a split fan base. I think people, if they listen to it enough, it would grow on them. And I honestly think this is a deserving album. I'm gonna give it a toe tag.
Wow.
I know. It was like either a toe tag or like a strong 7.5 for me. And that's what I was tossing between all week. And if I can only say, like, the first track's not that it's bad. I just kind of don't like it that much. The last track is garbage. But you're talking about how many tracks is it in total then without that last track?
10 or
11 songs. It's strong, man. It's strong. You go for a ride. Each song has character. Each song has flavor. The vocalists are great. There's a subtle use of piano throughout the entire album, which is really nice. It's something Mushroomhead always does. It's just, it's awesome, man. It's just really easy listening. You can crank it up. I think it deserves a toe tag. I'm really surprised you gave it a 6.5. I was expecting a higher score from you.
I was expecting a lower score from you.
Yeah, well, we're surprising each other. But anyways, guys, that's it for this video album review for A Wonderful Life. Comment below and let us know what you guys think of this album. If you agree with me, if you agree with TV Fish, or what your score would be after listening to this album for a week or however long you've been listening to it. Who knows? Anyways, guys, like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm Vile Self.
I'm TV Fish.
And we'll see you guys on the next video. Keep those heads banging.